Hey, guess what? It's Christmas week. That means we ain't working. We're not doing a new episode, but we didn't want to leave you hanging, so we decided to replay an old episode from season 2 that is a review of the movie Black Christmas from 1974. Seems very apropos of the season. Also, it's kind of hilarious to listen to us when we were still only 2 seasons into this and we're way more organized than we are now. So enjoy. We will be back next week with a brand new episode that's part of season 17. But right now, get comfortable. Just enjoy this week. Take it easy. Spend some time with people you like. And maybe even spend some time watching some horror movies. See ya. Hello. Welcome to a new episode from the second season of the Horrific Podcast. My name is Daniel, and my friend Bryce and I are big fans of horror movies. In each episode, we discuss a different horror movie that we've both watched. We'll start off by having a mostly spoiler-free discussion of the movie, and then give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. After that, we'll play a warning, and then talk about any big twists and the ending, and give the movie a final grade. Thanks for joining us, and here's Bryce to introduce the movie that we'll be discussing today.
Hello, everybody. So, Bryce here. Tell you about the movie we watched. We decided to watch Black Christmas, the 1974 version. Yeah, it's almost December. It's gonna be, Christmas time, and we're like, hey, what should we watch? Oh, let's watch Black Christmas. Anyway, in case you haven't seen Black Christmas, it's about like a sorority. It's about a group of girls that's in college, and it's during Christmas break, and they're kind of terrorized by a maniac, and it just kind of has that situation. It has a cool lady in it. Her name's Miss Mac. She has toilet whiskey that Daniel coined. That was one of the funniest parts of the podcast. Anyway, stick around, listen, let us know what you think.
You have your Christmas tree up yet?
Yeah, we put it up Sunday.
We did the same thing.
The past 2 years, we put it up while watching a Christmas movie, like an actual Christmas movie.
Yeah.
So we ended up watching Christmas Vacation for it.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then I watched this after.
It felt kind of right sitting there watching this movie in like just the light of the Christmas tree.
Yeah, I wish I had.
I don't know what that says about us as people. It felt right. But yeah, one thing I learned from this movie is I thought that I was good at prank calls when I was in middle school. Turns out I wasn't.
Yeah. This guy's a professional prank caller.
Whole other level.
Yeah.
But so, are you familiar with the concept of obscene phone calls?
I mean, just like
that's a thing. Like that was like common terminology in like the 70s. And the only reason I knew it was because my Aunt JoJo, I can't remember what it was for. It was some kind of that was like a common thing, I guess, at that time. And whatever game it was we were playing, that was the word that we were supposed to guess. And she couldn't understand why we couldn't figure it out. And like none of us had ever heard that term, but it was like a super common thing in the 70s where people would call and say like really like sexual things over the phone. But at that time, like you answered the phone when it rang. Like there was no caller ID, and so if it rang, it could be something super important. So it was like a big deal and kind of a common thing that people talked about then. And I feel like that's something that would be a little bit lost on you in this movie, because it's like, why didn't they take it seriously? Why didn't it's because like that was a thing that happened. That's
a good call, man. Because I had no idea.
Yeah.
So. That's pretty crazy, though, to think about.
Yeah, well, and it just like that it was just a thing that like everybody put up with. Like I feel like the 70s were a different time. Like you'd answer the phone just no matter when it rang, day or night. You'd probably hear something nasty from the other end. Then you go out and hitchhike to the police station to try and tell on them. Just like, what world is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so was this the first time you saw this movie?
Yep. Same. I've heard about this movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I haven't ever seen it before, no.
Yeah, and I don't know if I was just confusing it with something else or what, but it was not the movie I thought it was going to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for some reason I had in my mind that it was like super, super gory, but that wasn't really the case.
I kind of
had the same thing when I was watching it. I was expecting, it's technically a slasher, but I was expecting like a gory, like a Friday the 13th kind of movie.
This one struck me more as in the same vein of like the original Texas Chainsaw, where it's like you knew there was violence, but it wasn't super graphic about it. So
yeah,
and I guess that's kind of just a sign of the times of when it was made. But
yeah. Before that, all right. Well, I guess that came out the same year, didn't it? Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, same year, maybe,
or pretty close. But yeah. So yeah, I guess just one of the things that was super obvious from the beginning is that it was an older movie and not super high budget. One thing that stuck out to me a lot was the sound. I felt like there was a ton of background noise, like distractingly so at some points. Like it sounded like someone was crinkling paper in the background a lot, which I think may have just been like the mic peeking out or something, like a cheap microphone would,
Yeah.
But then there were also times like when they were in that recital hall and the sound was just super echoey. It was almost hard to hear what they were saying some of the times. And then there's the part where those two guys who were in the search party come to the door, and it was obvious that they had gone back and like dubbed in their dialogue later. Yeah. Because it was like out of sync, like you're watching Godzilla or something. I was just like, whew, that's kind of a rough one.
That whole scene in general was kind of weird, but yeah, I agree. The sound was a little off. I do have to say there was one time where like there was a cat, the cat, like it was doing like it wasn't meowing, but howling almost. And both Zoe and I thought it was a cat outside, so we started barking. So it's like, God, that's a good movie. And then like I kind of realized, because anytime I hear a cat, I bark, and then she starts barking with me and jumps to the window. But anyway, he got us. It fooled us.
Yeah. I also felt like it had really grainy filming. And
it did.
There were some times that were better than others, but like that scene where the police cars towards the end were driving through the downtown, that was extra bad. Just from that perspective.
Which I don't know if it's because, well, I guess low budget, but I guess even back then, like I feel like a low budget movie now, you still have really good equipment to, or you can still have better quality because you could record, something on your iPhone and
for sure,
and have better quality than back then. But,
one thing that we've talked about a lot is, horror movies haven't always been like the blockbuster thing that they are now. And there were a lot of them for a long time that were made on like no budget at all. So I can generally kind of look past most of that stuff and appreciate like the creativity of what they're doing with the limited resources. And I felt like this one had a lot of positive things going for it in that regard.
It's almost like if a movie came out nowadays that looked like that movie, looked like a movie from the 70s.
Right.
I think like that's when it's like, oh God, this isn't great.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I thought there was something just extremely exciting. And I don't know if it's just like a natural thing for me to get excited when it comes to Christmas, but like I got excited when the movie started and it had the Christmas music playing. I was just like, this is actually really exciting to have, this kind of stuff going on during, Christmas time. Yeah. Why wouldn't it happen during that time?
It's like two of your favorite things, murder and Christmas.
Yeah, killing and Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah. This is like a really good movie to traumatize children about another major holiday. It's like Halloween wasn't enough.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I feel like this movie did a lot of things that other movies copied later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like I hadn't, like I mentioned, I hadn't seen it before, but this one came before, Halloween and Friday the 13th, but it had like that shaky camera, heavy breathing outside the house in the beginning that reminded me a lot of the intro to Halloween.
Yeah. The point of view of the killer.
Yeah. Like the killer's face was always obscured. Like you never got a clean view of it. And then lots of the camera angles made you feel like you were the killer watching people that didn't know you were there.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, a lot of them from the killer's point of view. I thought that it was really interesting because as I was watching it, even from maybe the first 15 minutes, I'm making all these connections to like other movies, but then I'm like, oh yeah, this one came first.
Katie made a comment like that too when we were making dinner before this podcast. She was talking about the movie and just kind of asking what I thought, and she goes, yeah, it was kind of weird to think about that this movie probably is a reason why a lot of horror movies nowadays do what they do, But when you're watching this, you want to say, oh, they're just copying that movie and copying this movie. It's like, oh, no. They're probably copying Black Christmas.
Yeah.
Not everyone. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. It had a long-lasting influence, for sure. So, I also like that it got right to the action. Like, there was no playing around about it being a true story, no long setup, no short scene that, ended with extreme violence and then reset with completely different scene. You were in the middle of it as soon as the movie started.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. However, I will say, which you know how I'm a big fan of that. Like, I love that. But this movie kind of made me realize that it got me excited really early in the movie. And then it was kind of... There was mystery going on throughout it, but, it wasn't too... I guess I had trouble keeping up with the excitement because it started off on a high note. If that makes sense.
It was hard for it to, sustain the same feeling of suspense throughout because it wasn't so much of a build-up.
I generally like that idea because I think it's going to be pretty exciting throughout the whole movie. Mm-hmm. And at times, this one kind of lost me.
Yeah. Are there any pre-spoiler warning scenes that you want to talk about before we get into the characters?
I don't think so, no.
Do you think Star Wars stole "I love you, I know" from this movie?
Yeah, I made a note about that. That really bothered me.
It bothered me too.
I don't know if it's the old emo kid in me or what, but he said, "I love you," and she goes, "I know." And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Just say it back.
I know.
Don't say "love you." I hate "love you" too. It's like getting "sure" as a response.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you want to go do this? Sure. It's like, God, I hate that. But I know. Kind of hope that you do die. Really?
Yeah. Oh, I also never thought of playing piano as intense cardio, but in this movie I learned something.
He sweat his ass off.
He did.
My main thing that I was wondering, so Barb, which one Barb was? She was kind of like, is that who that was?
Yeah, in the Superman movies.
Oh. Well, okay. I mean, how old was she? I mean, 26. That was supposed to be a sorority.
She was 26.
In the movie?
Yeah.
Did they say that?
No, I looked it up because I had the same thought. Well, we're already into my notes about the characters, by the way.
They were... Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, my main thing is, she looks like she was 50 years old.
No, I agree.
I'm just saying, it was like Steve Buscemi's commercial where he says, hello, fellow student.
So I literally have a line in my notes that says, everyone in the sorority house looked 50 years old, ... but that may have just been the wardrobe and the hair. But then I looked it up, and so I said Barb, a.k.a. Lois Lane, was around 26. And I said around because last time I said somebody's age, you called me out for not knowing when their birthday was. But then I was like, that's egregious, until I looked up Peter's age. That dude was pushing 40. I'm not even joking. That's
so great.
Yeah, this college student. Yeah. So it was different time. I feel like they did that for quite a while, and they still, obviously still have actors who are old doing young people things. But. Yeah. Who was your movie MVP?
Miss Mac.
Same.
Yeah, because she hit alcohol.
Yeah.
I was like, hell yeah.
No, she's the best.
You have a book that has a cutout of your brandy.
Yeah. Well, now I'm wondering how many of my books Sarah's done that too.
I know.
Because when we saw that, she was uncomfortably laughing. Who would do such? Yeah, no.
Yeah. Zach was telling me about his in-laws coming to town, and I told him to hide mini bottles of wild turkey all over his house.
Oh, God, why wild turkey?
Because you could drink a mini bottle and feel all right for a little while because it's 101 proof.
Oh, okay.
Or 100 proof.
Fair enough.
And it's it's like Easter. But then Mrs. Mac, she took it to a whole new level. She hit it in the toilet.
The thing I loved about her is everybody else in the house was already drinking constantly. But it's like she was just playing the game so she could feel like she was getting away with something.
Yeah. So
she's standing around all the other girls who were drinking and getting drunk. And then she's like, oh, well, I'm just going to use the restroom. And then she walks in and she's pulling out that toilet whiskey. And you're just like, dang, she's really chasing the rush.
Toilet whiskey?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Toilet wine. I learned how to make that in prison.
Yeah. Did you have a least valuable player? A movie LVP?
Oh, no. I
did. Mr. Harrison.
You did? Oh, okay.
He contributed nothing at any point in the whole movie, and then he just left.
Yeah.
Well, he passed out, but then he left. Spoilers. But yeah, he did nothing. Absolutely.
True.
They like built him up to be this like prominent character that seemed to be driving the story for a minute, and then they're just like, yeah, nobody likes looking at this dude. Let's get him off camera.
I mean, he just had disappointment like on his face the whole time.
That's true.
He was just disappointed in everything.
Yeah, and judgy, a little bit judgy.
Yeah.
So most of what I want to talk about, as has been the case lately, comes after the spoiler warning. But I'll let you go first on thumbs up, thumbs down.
Oh yeah, I give it thumbs up.
So I do too, as in a thumbs up as in you should watch it, not thumbs up as in I think it's an A.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, not to tip my hand too much for final grades, but I just want to say, when I'm saying thumbs up, I'm like, yeah, watch this movie around Christmas. You're going to see a lot of stuff that I feel like was influential for future movies, but there's also a lot of things that aren't great about it, but just watch it and have fun with it. Because, what other Christmas horror movies are there, really?
I mean, decent ones. You know, I think this movie overall has a pretty good rating, like review wise, because it's not because it's one of the early slashers, but also joined two holidays.
Yeah, well, and not a holiday, not like Halloween.
Wait, what?
Joined to a holiday that's not like Halloween. Like I feel like a lot of horror movies, take place on Halloween or something.
Yeah, and with Christmas being such like a happy and cheerful time, unless you're single and alone, and then it's like one of the most depressing times.
Yeah, or if you're a 40-year-old college student who had a bad recital.
Man, he was living the dream for a while.
Yeah, a little while, but it all came crashing down on the holidays.
Literally.
Yeah.
Warning. Spoilers. This is your warning. Warning. Spoilers. This is your warning. If it's not obvious enough. Warning. Spoilers.
Okay, so now we're on the other side. Do you have any scenes you want to talk about now?
I don't know if it's a specific scene, but I will say, like, the movie was kind of slow at times, and it took a lot for me to hold on and pay attention, because, terrible attention span. But I have to say that, like, I found this movie genuinely terrifying. Terrifying. I thought it was, like, super creepy, because it has a lot of things that you don't want to happen. Someone in your house that you don't know.
Yeah.
Not only getting the lewd, conversation, phone calls, but like the first phone call that he had, which I guess this is a scene. This is actually something I really enjoyed. Yeah. Was the first prank call that the killer made. He ended it by saying, "I'm going to kill you," and then hangs up. It's like, it's just creepy. It was just, I don't know. So I think this was one of the more terrifying horror movies that I think we've watched, for the podcast. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's not like I was shitting bricks.
Yeah.
But I was genuinely like just uneasy watching it, knowing that the killer's upstairs. Yeah. In the basement.
It felt like very relatable to you, like
and not
you
knowing
could see
who it
yourself
is
in that position, and so it like stuck with you that way.
As both the killer and the killer.
Yeah. It didn't. It didn't get to me as much that way. I think mostly because I just put up my Christmas tree, so I couldn't be in a bad mood. But I will say I thought there were a few scenes in it that were really well done. Like towards the beginning, when the camera cuts to the girl with the plastic over her face, rocking in the chair, and then there's that super creepy like singing in the background, and then it fades out of that scene into the scene of like the old church-looking college building. Yeah. But just the way they did like that slow fade, and they were kind of superimposed on each other, like that whole series of events, because you really didn't even have like a good frame of reference for what was happening yet, I thought was just tremendously well done. That was one of what I would consider like one of the defining scenes of the movie. There was also the scene where Jess is in the basement towards the very end, and Peter's looking in and calling for her, and then he breaks in like a creep because he's a 40-year-old dating a college student. Naturally. And then comes inside, and you know he's not the killer, but you know that she thinks he's the killer, and you have no idea what's about to happen because he might have lost it after getting dumped, and she's down there ready to like fight him. And that was just a really intense and like built up scene, and you had no idea what to expect,
right,
or even really who to be cheering for, or even what you wanted to happen next. I guess so. That was
real
interesting
confused.
to me. Yeah.
It had to like when the killer was in the basement or in the attic, it had a real like psycho feel to it. Mm-hmm. With him, I assume the killer had multiple personalities, or they were just crazy and did different voices.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, if you're doing voices and you don't do Donald Duck, then you're just not good. So he had to be crazy.
No, I agree.
It definitely reminded me of Psycho.
Yeah. There was also the scene, kind of going back to the different voices and stuff. The prank phone call thing didn't really get to me all that much until they started getting more personalized as the movie went along, which I thought was a great touch. Yeah. Because it started off just like super general, and it's like, yeah, this is some dude with a creepy voice who's being a jerk. It was just kind of annoying. But then that part where all of a sudden at the very end, the old woman screamed, just like having a wart removed.
Yeah.
And that was like this super personalized insult from a thing that was like this very like tense part of the movie from a previous argument. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, the person making these calls knows the intimate details of what's happening inside this house. That's what took it to a different level for me. And I thought it was cool how they like slow played that and built it up.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you put yourself in the girl's shoes, you would probably start to wonder if it was like a supernatural thing.
Yeah.
Where, because not thinking that someone could be in your house is supposed to be the safe zone.
Yeah.
And that could really play some games.
Yeah.
Or mess with your brain.
Also, I gotta say, there's nothing scarier than singing children. Like, that's the creepiest thing in the world to me, just for future reference. So when there was that group of them at the front door doing the Christmas caroling, that was when I felt the most uncomfortable in the movie. And I knew for a fact that someone was about to die in horrific fashion. Like, there's no way that you're ever going to have singing children in a movie and not have something terrible happen.
Yeah,
or
that's
in real life.
So was that the scene where you had to run and take a shot of your toilet whiskey?
Yes. Yeah, and I stopped for some dictionary whiskey on the way back to the
Oh man, how funny would it be, especially with like your bathroom and like my bathroom is connected to the bedroom, just for like Katie or Sarah to see us like run to the bathroom, kind of out of breath almost, open the toilet, take a shot, put it back, and run out. That'd be hilarious.
Oh man. I'm totally gonna put some in there though.
You should.
But I'm gonna do it like half empty, so that if she ever finds it, she'll be like, "He has a problem.
He's been drinking. Why is he hiding it? I don't get mad. He can drink."
She's like, "I wanted the rest of that."
I know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, there was the scene after the cab driver leaves, and it's right after Billy, which I guess was the killer's name, had killed Mrs. Mack with the hook in the attic. And then the cab driver shows up and he's like knocking on the door and nobody goes down, and then he leaves. And then Billy just like throws a fit and starts destroying the attic.
Right.
And you're seeing it all from his point of view, which I thought was like a cool way to shoot that. But I didn't understand what was happening. Like, why was he so upset? Did you have any idea?
No idea. I was actually really confused by that.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what. The only thing I could think of is if one of his personalities killed Mrs. Mack and he switched to the other personality and realized that Mrs. Mack was dead. Like, he thought he was part of the group.
Gotcha.
But that's the only thing I could think of.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Which we might just stick with that.
Yeah, no, you win. Also, last question. Why couldn't Jess get out the front door? The police had no problem getting in later.
Was it like a mental thing? Didn't she want to go upstairs for her friend?
Well, no. There's one point where she runs downstairs and she's trying to open the front door, and it won't open before she goes in the basement. And it's like, but then later the police just like seemed to come in with no issues. That bothered me a little bit.
Yeah. That's, but that's horror movie 101 right there. Kitty actually said, "Why is she going upstairs?" Before all that went down, I said, "Because it's a horror movie."
Yeah. That's as good an answer as any, I guess. Do you ever wish you'd like been around to see these when they were new?
Oh yeah, dude, all the time actually. Yeah, I think about that when like when I watch Frankenstein and stuff. It's like, man, could you imagine watching this for the first time like in a theater?
Yeah.
And not having any, not seeing this, kind of stuff before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, granted, in the 70s it'd be a little bit different, but man, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've been thinking about this lately, and I guess it's just from watching Halloween and Friday the 13th and this all for the first time. But you know how you get to that point where you're like super into music, and like you have those bands that you like, and it's like all new to you, and you're just discovering it for the first time.
Yeah.
But then you get to that point where like now you want to listen to the bands that your favorite bands listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I'm getting that way with horror movies a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think we need to start working in some old school ones.
Yeah. Like Frankenstein old school?
Yeah. Yeah, like the ones that, I don't know, people cite as being like the inspiration for the ones that they made later and stuff, Because
I want to start watching like some B-sided, it's the B-side type horror movies.
But I feel like, because we watched Friday the 13th, and I'm like, yeah, that did a lot of those things for the first time, and now we've watched like 3 movies since then that did it before. Yeah. And I'd kind of like to, I don't know, maybe learn a little bit more about the ones how it all got started.
One of the reasons for the podcast, I mean, like we say, is, it's kind of our exploration into this too. We're fans of it, and we're just, diving deeper into a genre that we really enjoy. So I'm cool with it. I like watching it and realizing, oh no, I know for a fact I said things that were original in Friday the 13th, and they did it in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, dang, I was wrong.
At least it's recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Well, cool. I'm glad you're down. So do you want to talk about the ending?
Oh, yeah.
What did you think of it?
Something that really terrified me, and I'm using terrified a lot recently.
Yeah.
But one thing that kind of got me was, this isn't necessarily with the ending, but when the killer, Billy, is looking through the closet and it just shows his eye, and his eye's kind of like reddish brown, that tripped me out because, eyes freak me out. I feel like Black Christmas ended the movie the best way that they could without making it cheesy. So you know how like Friday the 13th I thought was really good, but the ending, it was just like, I feel like they did it for Friday the 13th Part 2.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think Black Christmas did that with, a sequel in mind.
Yeah, fair enough. I feel like it felt very final at the ending.
Yeah.
It was like you had this brief view into this insane situation, and you had no explanation for a lot of it. But then it was just like you were escorted out at the end. It's like you've seen all you're allowed to see. This is a different world, and goodbye.
And just so you know, it's going to happen again, so you shouldn't be comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was super creepy. I'm glad I don't have an attic. And I also love that it ended with the phone ringing inside the house and the credits rolling for like an extended period of time. I thought that was
for a long time.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would necessarily say that I felt super scared at any point, but I do like that it ended with no real resolution or explanation, because for the type of the movie and what it was going for and the way it presented itself, I felt like that was very appropriate, and leaving it unresolved was a lot like scarier or a lot creepier or a lot more uncomfortable than if they had tried to go over the top and explain everything. Yeah, I think if it was like, if the killer ended up being Peter, you could see why, like, because of, it did seem like he was losing it throughout the whole movie. But then you could think like, well, why would he have killed the other girls? Like, he wasn't crazy yet. So I thought that they were leading towards Peter, and then once you discover that it's not him, it's like, oh, hell yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but I also like that it kind of set you up to believe that the characters would believe it was him. Like that was kind of a good twist as well.
Yeah, because they thought for a second it could be Peter, and then she was like, oh wait, he wasn't, he was in the house when we got the call earlier. Yeah. So it can't be him. And then it was just like, wait a minute.
Yeah. But then she's
all this stuff about me.
Yeah. Then she's completely scared and terrified, and then he breaks in, and of course she would have thought, it had to have been him. So
right. yeah, I thought they did pretty good at that point.
Yeah. I'm typically very, very critical of endings, and I liked this one. So I think that's a good sign. But yeah. Anything else before we do final grades?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot to set it up.
Yeah. Damn it.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
I'm so fucking mad right now, man.
Dude, just go take a shot at your toilet whiskey. Calm down. You're looking to fight. Yeah. You're drinking toilet tequila. Anyway. Every week we do movie grades, and the general idea is that if we were college professors teaching a film class on horror movies, or if we were movie critics who focused on horror movies, and in either case someone presented this movie to us and asked for our input, what grade would we give it and why? And because I don't want to get punched, I'm going to let you go first.
You're not getting punched. You know, this, and we've talked about this before, where I have a thought about the movie that we're doing the podcast on. And then we talked about it, and I realized, you know what? I really enjoyed it more than my grading that I did when I watched the movie. And I'm going to give it a B+. I think it had like characters coming and going, much like Eddie, the boyfriend who had the nice rowing glasses, and he was Santa Claus, and he cussed a lot.
Yeah. And then he just disappeared.
Yeah, and then you never see him again.
There was also the boyfriend in what looked to be a dog fur coat.
Yes. Yeah, I really miss him too. But the movie's a little bit slow. I feel like it was a little bit faster. Maybe if they, and this is going to sound kind of creepy, I don't really care, if they added a killing between the first and second one, it might have helped a little bit, or might have brought a little bit more excitement. But I think they ended this movie just as they should have, without any frills and, you know, over the top situations. But yeah, you give it a B. Filming wasn't B+. Filming wasn't too great, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I feel like this is going to be a tradition to watch Black Christmas come, December.
Yeah. I don't know. So you kind of got into a lot of what was my big takeaway, which is that it felt like very unbalanced. Mm-hmm. In the first half of the movie, there were a bunch of characters, and it almost felt to me like a teenager movie, like almost like the Jessica Biel Texas Chainsaw, where they're like smoking weed and always wearing know, wet white tank tops and stuff, because it was for 18-year-olds, the fellatio jokes and arguments about abortion and just like all these like kind of teenage drama type things, it felt like.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't into that at all. But then it was like about halfway through, really around the time Mrs. Mack died, it was like it started getting a lot more serious. And then, that's kind of when the phone calls started getting like more personalized, and then more stuff was going on inside the house. And it was like they focused on a few characters and on their experience. And so you could like actually empathize with them a little bit. They weren't just a bunch of like snotty college kids, I guess, which I guess I'm showing my age a little bit, but I don't know. To me, it just felt like it was very unbalanced. And the second half did a lot of things well, but I just feel like on the whole, the movie was a better idea than it was in execution. Mm-hmm. So, like, it did a lot of things that were creative and that would definitely catch on for horror movies, but it was also really kind of rough to watch at times. And like, I don't mind the cheap camera or the rough sound, but just like a lot of that, like, blatant trying to be edgy and I'm going to tell a cop that my phone number starts with fellatio, and then another cop's going to laugh about it for 10 minutes. Like, there was so much that I felt like could have been completely cut out of the movie, and so many characters that were kind of started and then just nothing done with. I didn't care for that near as much. And so I stand by my thumbs up in that I feel like it's worth watching, and it's worth watching especially around the holidays because it just like fits. And I do think that if you're someone especially who enjoys like Friday the 13th and Halloween and those types of movies, you absolutely need to see this one. But I can't, just as a movie, I don't feel like rate it a lot higher than a C+.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That was my initial grading too. Yeah. I think the ending's just what pushed it over, pushed it up for me. But.
Yeah, and two, I think that as we've discussed several times, you relate a lot more to those like home invasion or, somebody inside the house, or like that suspense of knowing that there's danger in the house with you. Whereas that's not as big of a thing for me. Just because I live in an apartment and I don't have an attic, and I feel like if somebody ever came in, we'd probably just be friends. Like that's
true. Yeah, have a shot of toilet whiskey.
Exactly.
Get you a couple hot dogs, sit on the couch, and let's hang out. Pretty
soon, you start off enemies. Next thing you know, you're singing Christmas carols. You're making some homemade ice cream. You're hugging.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's why everyone should have toilet whiskey.
Oh man.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening. And the only reason I knew it was because my Aunt JoJo, I can't remember what it was for. It was some kind of like Pictionary or something. No, it couldn't have been Pictionary because that wouldn't make any sense. But I don't know, some kind of game.
Act out a prank call.
Draw a prank phone call.
Yeah,
I'm an idiot, dude.
I said act out when you said Pictionary, so I'm technically dumb too.
We belong together.
I know.